Hello, my name is Jan King, and it is my absolute pleasure to be able to speak today with Azmina Gavinji. I had the privilege of meeting Azmina at a conference for people living with diabetes because both my parents have type 2 diabetes, and the information, the knowledge that Azmina has is just amazing. So I feel that today everybody is going to be learning so much on the topics that we're going to cover, which is about healthy food for all cultures, but mainly South Asian. So, Azmina, welcome. I'm going to give you a brief introduction because oh my goodness, what you have done just it always blows me away, and I'm always totally in awe of what you're doing. So Azmina is a registered dietitian who was the chief dietitian to Diabetes UK for 8 years. She's a best-selling author and TV nutrition expert. She's currently working with Public Health England's Better Health campaign, which I know we're going to delve into a bit later, and I'm really excited about that. And this is a campaign to help people from the South Asian communities manage their weight, in turn, reduce the risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and even COVID-19. I'm delighted that she's going to be sharing with us some of her insights about this campaign, as well as her personal experiences of helping people from South Asian families make healthier dietary choices. Welcome, Asmina. It is lovely to connect with you again.
And you, Jan, it's so special. And thank you for such a lovely introduction. I think, yes, we go back a long way, and those Diabetes Research and Wellness Foundation Wellness Days, which are when we can meet face to face, are a great opportunity to just share experiences. So thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about the government's Better Health campaign, particularly in relation to South Asian families?
So in July 2020, Public Health England launched the Better Health campaign. And the whole reason for this is it's part of the government's obesity strategy, because if you are overweight, you are more at risk of certain conditions like coronary heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and now even COVID-19. And there are certain target groups that the government is focusing on because they are more at risk of these conditions. That includes Black Africans, Black Caribbeans, and South Asians. So I'm lucky enough to be campaign dietitian for the South Asian part of this campaign.
Oh wow! So really exciting stuff at the moment. I'm literally going, oh my goodness, that's loads. So why is it important for South Asians?
So, so the South Asian population is already more at risk of these conditions genetically, with the way we put on weight, and the incidence of obesity. So, data suggests that more than 16% of South Asian men are living with obesity, and nearly a quarter of South Asian women are living with obesity. So, if we have this population where obesity is so common, then we are going to put ourselves more at risk of, say, type 2 diabetes and COVID-19. And, when you look at even your community and my community, I'm sure I'm right in thinking that somewhere in your family structure, there will be someone who has type 2 diabetes. It's just so common.
Well, as I've mentioned, both my parents, so I've always been really, acutely aware that you've got to take certain precautions. I mean, what is really the main problem when we're overweight?
So, when you're overweight, particularly when you put on weight round the tummy, which is called central obesity or abdominal obesity, this is the most unhealthy place to put on weight when you've got this sort of apple shape. When you have fat around those organs, then you are more at risk of insulin resistance, which means you're going to be less sensitive to your body's insulin, which makes it very difficult for you to manage your blood glucose levels. You're also more at risk of heart disease and conditions related to heart disease. So it's really important for us to take steps to cut down and to watch our weight. And the best ways to do that is to watch what you eat and to have greater levels of physical activity. And when you go onto the Better Health campaign on the NHS site, you'll see there's a 12-week free NHS weight management program, and there are lots of apps like Couch to 5K that can help you to manage your weight.
Okay, so let's think about some tips for South Asian people with type 2 diabetes. I mean, currently with restrictions around the country, many of us can't exercise as much, or when we go shopping, we tend to reach for the comfort food. And let's face it, we all like a bit of comfort, don't we? So share some tips.
Well, you're so right. The number of people who have come to me during this, from March to now, saying, I'm putting on weight, I'm snacking more, I feel a little bit low, so I'm going for comfort food and I'm exercising less. So, unfortunately, it's not been a great time for many to take care of their health. But I'd like to turn that on the flip side and say, you know what? This might be the perfect opportunity for you to say, I'm now going to do the things that I've been saying for years to help me get healthier and to manage my weight. And the reason why I say that is that, we've got less availability of foods. We're going out less, so eating out, takeaways, we might have cut down on those. If we go into lockdown, and some parts of the country are in lockdown, then, we're going to have to just rely on the staples that we've got at home. So that's really quite an opportunity because it helps us then to think creatively about what we can do with foods that are around us. And within the South Asian household, we've always got things like wholemeal flour or atta. We've got rice, so choose brown versions of basmati rice. We've usually got some pulses and beans, dried lentils. These are all really great foods that are cost effective and can help you manage your blood glucose levels and help you watch your weight, depending on your cooking methods and depending on your portion size.
Okay, that I didn't think about those, but that's some really great information. It does seem that we do have fewer foods at home than normal, and how can we make healthier meals with the foods that we've got in the kitchen? Because I know in my kitchen there's some things that I think, oh, I don't know what to do with it, so I just put it to one side.
Yeah, I think, it's the case with a lot of people actually, Janice. And, for me, I'm a busy working professional. I'm a mom, got my own business. I work with charities, etc. So I really haven't got much time to get the apron on, roll up my sleeves, and make a big meal. So I'm always looking for shortcuts. And I think there are so many convenient shortcuts around. So, for example, frozen veg, helping you to get one of your five a day, or open a can of sweet corn and add it to whatever you're choosing, so a rice dish, or even if you happen to have a ready meal, accompany it with a portion of vegetables like a side salad or opening a can of peas or sweet corn or having some frozen veg. And then you can get these microwavable lentil pouches or rice pouches or quinoa. And I think these are great ways to have whole grains in the diet because they actually help us to have fiber, and they can help your blood glucose control by giving you slower and more steady rises in your blood glucose. So having beans and pulses and brown pasta and brown rice in the house can help you to find convenient and easy ways to eat, but also manage your blood glucose levels and your weight.
Okay, that great advice. Again, I didn't think about those pouches, and they are great. So I'm going to be putting those on my list. Can what we eat help our immune systems so that we're less likely to get coronavirus?
That's a really good question. And you know what? No single food or nutrient is going to give you what you need for a healthy immune system. It's about the whole variety and balance of your meals over the course of days or a week. So the thing that's important is to make sure you have some whole grain carbs, you have some lean protein, lean meat, fish, eggs, cheese, nuts, tofu, dals, and that you have a wide variety of fruit and vegetables because they contain a lot of immune supporting vitamins and minerals. And within our communities, and I'm sure you might find this within the Black African and the Black Caribbean communities, that we get a lot of emails and WhatsApp messages around, there's a great remedy for immunity, have this herb, have this supplement. And we're bombarded with this information, which often is not from a reliable source. So there are no proven herbal remedies that can wildly boost your immune system and protect you from COVID-19. But there is one nutrient that I would like to single out for all dark skinned communities, and that is vitamin D. Vitamin D helps to support your immune function, and there's even recent studies which you may hear on the news about the role of vitamin D in perhaps helping us against COVID-19. So this is really exciting emerging evidence. So what's important is we make vitamin D when the sunlight catches our skin. We manufacture it when the sun's rays hit our skin. And the British weather isn't great at the best of times. So certainly in the winter, we're never going to make enough vitamin D. And for the whole of the UK population, it's recommended that during the winter months, we take a 10 microgram supplement of vitamin D every day. But for people like you and me who are dark skinned, we actually need to be exposing our skin to more sunshine to make the same amount of vitamin D as someone with fair skin. So we are not dealt our cards very well when it comes to vitamin D, and we need to be extra careful. So for South Asian populations, really consider that if you're, especially in lockdown, when you're at home, or if you've got seniors who are housebound, or if you cover up your skin when you go out with clothing, then you're not going to make that much vitamin D. And so make sure you have that supplement, but ideally during March to September, get out into the sunshine when the sun is at its highest, usually around lunchtime when the sun's above you. And Cancer Research UK suggests you should be in the sun if you're South Asian or dark skinned for up to 25 minutes a day to make sure you're getting enough vitamin D to help support your immune function.
Wow. That's a lot of information, Azmina, but great information. I'm like, okay, I'm taking note. What are the other types of foods that we need to be eating for good health? Especially bearing in mind that South Asian communities are more at risk of diabetes and heart disease. Have you got any top tips of what people can do, and me especially, a whole family, rather than just thinking about ourselves as individuals? Where we've got one member who's got diabetes and one member who hasn't. What are some good tips around that?
So I love the way you've put that question because you're so right. Having diabetes does not mean that you need to eat different foods to the rest of the household. I love your sentiment there. And especially within our cultures, a family setting is so important, isn't it?
Tell me about it. Food.
Yeah, we love our food and we love our festivals and we love gathering around the table, and we tend to do perhaps more home cooking than the wider UK. Yeah. So it's really important that our family meals are delicious and healthy for everyone, because let's face it, even if just one person in the family has type 2 diabetes, everyone in our family is at risk. So really, we ought to be thinking about how can we protect everyone in our community. So for me, it's about everyday meals just need to be made healthier. And within the South Asian communities, there are a few things that we can do. So when you're thinking about your carbs, have whole grain carbs. So when you're making chapatis, rather than choosing white flour or atta, use coarse wholemeal atta. If you're having tortilla wraps, choose the high fiber wholemeal tortilla wraps. If you're having basmati rice, choose brown or whole grain basmati rice. These high fiber whole grain foods can help to fill you up, but more importantly for diabetes, they can help to give you slower, more steady rises in your blood glucose levels. So that's the first bit, the whole grain carbohydrate foods. The second bit is to think about our saturated fat. So in our cuisine, a lot of people are still using ghee, which is a saturated fat. And I don't know whether you found this, but a lot of my community think coconut oil is the best oil to use. Have you found that coconut oil is super healthy?
Do you know, I was going to ask you about that because I'm never quite sure, and it's like, is there something better?
Yeah, and you're right, there is something better. So there is this misconception that coconut oil, because it's from a plant, and yes, I'd love to talk about plant-based foods later, and that's a really good part of the fact that coconut oil is from a plant, but then so is rapeseed oil, so is corn oil, sunflower oil. Coconut oil has more saturated fat than butter. So when you're thinking about butter and ghee being bad for you because high saturated fat in your diet can increase your blood cholesterol levels and make you more prone to heart disease, which is a complication of diabetes, we need to be cutting down on our saturated fat. And therefore, coconut oil is not the best way to do that. So my suggestion is to try rapeseed oil, which is high in what we call monounsaturated fats and low in saturated fat. Basically, it's a really versatile oil that you can use in cooking. Rapeseed oil or olive oil are great types of oil, and they can help to reduce our saturated fat intake. So those are the sort of fats type of things. We talked about whole grain carbs. The other one is to make sure you get your 5 a day fruit and vegetables. So trying to make sure that you have lots of vegetables on your plate and think about your portion size.
Okay. Um, Plant-based eating. Now, this is one that's really close to my heart because both of my boys are plant-based, and initially I struggled. So, plant-based is becoming more popular. It's great for the environment and also for health reasons, and so on and so forth. So, can you talk to us a bit about plant-based, what you've been doing around that? Because I know you've got some very exciting news about this as well, which, yeah, so share, please share.
So I really feel for you when you said both your sons are on a plant-based or vegan diet, because that's exactly what happened to me. My 23-year-old daughter one day, we're chatting in the kitchen and she says, "Mom, I've become vegan." And, with all my years of training and understanding the essential nutrients you get from dairy, like iodine and the iron and B12 you get from red meat, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? This girl is still growing, and her bones are regenerating, and I've got to think about all these nutrients. So I did get into a bit of a research frenzy, and I tell you, I looked at global evidence on plant-based eating and how to do it right, because like you've just said, a lot of young people now, and in fact, any age, are being more conscious of the environment, of animal welfare, and even for health reasons, are going towards more plant-based eating. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. And I personally think that in diabetes, we should all be perhaps cutting down on our animal food intake and having more plant-based foods because they are higher in fiber and better for our blood glucose control. But when you go to 100% plant-based eating or vegan diets, you need to just be a little bit careful. So after this panic attack with my daughter and all the years of research I've done, I'm really excited to be saying that I'm launching a book here, which is my latest book called Vegan Savvy. And it's the expert's guide to nutrition on a plant-based diet. And it's got lots of really good tips on carbohydrate and on all sorts of things that you might want to be thinking about. All the information is really pictorial and fun and light. And the main point of it is to help all of us to eat better, not just if you're on 100% plant-based eating. And one of the key concepts around Vegan Savvy, this book, is for today, I'm launching a competition for people who are participating in this conference. What they need to do is to follow me on Twitter or Instagram. My handle is at Azmina Nutrition. And when they follow me, just to make a comment with a hashtag vegan savvy. So that's the hashtag to enter the competition. Follow at Azmina Nutrition. And the publishers will at random pick out 5 people to get their own copy of Vegan Savvy when it's out on the 10th of December. So this competition is running from today, Saturday, the 14th of November, right through till midnight tomorrow, Sunday, the 15th of November, 14th of November, 15th of November.
Okay, perfect. And if we don't win a book in a competition, can we just where do we get it? Do we get it on Amazon or something?
Yes, you can pre-order now actually on Amazon. There's a link shown there. And yes, you can get your pre-order copy, like you say, for your sons and all the rest of it. Great Christmas present, I think. And, you know, the sort of concepts that I talk about in the book, which I think is really relevant to diabetes, is the way you should look at your plate when you sit down to a meal. So let me talk you through this. So if you imagine your plate of food and you split it into quarters, so you've got veggie, which one am I looking at? This is the wrong way around I think that's the protein, and there's the carbs. It's a mirror image when I'm talking to you. So when you eat your dinner, think about, right, let's say you're having dal and rice. So the dal being a protein would go into that section. And that's the amount. It really helps you to watch your portion size. If you're having rice, remember the brown basmati rice, and that should fill about a quarter, a lot less than I think the portion sizes we're probably having. But remember, this can help you watch your weight. And then you want to have 2 lots of veggies to fill about half of that plate. And that can be side salad. It could be some okra curry or aubergine curry. It could be your apple that you're going to have after your meal, as long as roughly half of that plate would be filled with vegetables. And if you eat this way, which is all explained really properly in the book, you can actually get a wider variety of nutrients that help your immune function. You can get foods that are at what we call low glycemic index foods because of all those vegetables and all the fiber in the pulses, so that your blood glucose level is nice and slow and steady. And you watch your portion size so that you can manage your weight better. And you're more likely to get your 5 a day fruit and vegetables. So, you know, rather than remembering all these tips that we've been talking about, just remembering the plate. Honestly, the number of people that say to me now when I go out to a restaurant, I think VVPC. Let me just see, have I got all these components on my plate? And it really does help you to eat better.
That's a really, really good tip. So, and you just touched a bit on plant-based eating and fiber and the whole grains. Can you kind of like run through why that's important, how it helps in managing kind of like health and the I know you touched on it a little bit, the blood glucose, and you know, how can we choose foods that are high in fiber yet tasty? Because I think we've got this misconception that if it's high in fiber, it's going to taste like cardboard, and I know that's not true.
But it's a common, you know, it's a common thought, isn't it, for a lot of people? And I think, you know, when you look in the past about fiber, and I remember the F plant diet. I don't know if you're old enough to remember that, but
I
you know,
am.
oh, you're right. You know, fiber has often been considered to be like crisp breads and bran. But actually, I think what plant-based eating and this whole movement has done is make us find the exciting ways to eat plant-based food. Nowadays, you've got vegan choices in restaurants, and you know, I'm amazed at what you can do with the cauliflower. You know, it's like cauliflower steak, and you have aubergine boats, and you have these butternut squash risottos, and you know, for me now, plant-based eating has become a culinary journey of discovery, and the colors are so important because The wider variety of natural colours on your plate give you a wider variety of vitamins and minerals. So there you are again, those immune supporting nutrients that can help us with our everyday health. So if we all were to have more plant-based foods in our diet, we would be getting all of those nutrients, or more of those nutrients. But in terms of diabetes, plant-based foods tend generally to have what we call a lower glycemic index, or low GI. And this is about how carbohydrate foods are digested in your body and how slowly or quickly they are converted into glucose, which then enters your bloodstream. So high GI foods, let's say cornflakes, which is quite low in fiber, will be digested very quickly, and it can get into the glucose then enters your bloodstream very quickly. So you get a rise in your blood glucose quite quickly. But if you went for a whole grain cereal, one based on bran, or let's say porridge, that's digested more slowly, and the glucose from that carbohydrate goes into your bloodstream more slowly, which makes your blood glucose rise at a slower, steadier pace. And that's really ideal for management of diabetes. So eating more plant-based foods has more general health benefits, like helping to support your immune system, your overall health, your risks of cardiovascular disease, strokes, high blood pressure. There's lots of research on this, but also on a day-to-day basis, it helps your control or management of blood glucose, that then helps your long-term management of diabetes and risk of long-term complications.
Okay. What about whole fruits and fruit juices? Any tips on how to, sensibly incorporate those into diet as well?
So a lot of people who are diagnosed with diabetes, I had a call yesterday, say to me, I can't eat fruit anymore, can I? And I'm like, well, where did you get that from? And she says, oh, I hear all the time, no carbs and no fruit. And I think this frenzy about sugar has made us more concerned about the sugar in fruit. So it's good you've asked that question, and I'd like to explain it. So when I talked about glycemic index, or GI, if, for example, you and I were to have, if you were to eat an apple now, and I was to have some fruit juice, that if I had one apple squeezed into fruit juice, it would probably be a very small amount. And if we were to start eating at the same time as I start drinking, who'd be finished first? Exactly, because it's not going to take me long to drink that much, and it's going to take you a while to chew that apple. And that's the big difference between whole fruit and fruit juice. So when we think about GI, that sugar that's in the fruit juice, and the fruit juice has no fiber to slow down the rise in my blood glucose, that sugar is going to go straight into my gut and straight into my bloodstream, and it's going to cause those horrible spikes in blood glucose that I want to avoid. But your apple, which you're still eating, you're chewing it, your gut's then got to, tug away at the skin and digest all that flesh. It's going to mean that the apple is slowly digested, or low GI, and therefore the glucose gets into your bloodstream much more slowly, and you're going to get that nice, slower peak and trough in your blood glucose. So the answer, the short answer to your question is that actually fruits are fine. Choose the ones like apples, pears, oranges, plums, peaches, that are less intensely sweet. Choose them often as part of your 5 a day. Have them after a meal, where the glucose and the sugar is all mixed up with the other components in the meal. And they are fine as part of a varied diet because they're low GI. Think carefully about the very high sugary ones, though, like mangoes or dates, dried dates, or pineapple or grapes, where you might sit down with a big bowl of grapes. That's a lot, a handful is fine.
Okay. What about berries?
Berries are great. Berries are actually a low GI food. So, when you're having your cereal in the morning, throw some berries in if you want to have a smoothie. And I would suggest a smoothie that's got some oats in it, some nuts in it, maybe some oat drink rather than fruit juice, so that you've got a less sugary drink. If you're making a smoothie, put some frozen berries into there. Really good for you.
Wow, that's really, great information and advice. Another question I wanted to ask is about, and I think no, but lots of people say, do we need to change to the Western type diets to eat better?
So yeah,
So,
you get that question too, right?
yep.
Yeah, it's so sad, isn't it? Because food is such an integral part of our culture. I mean, you talked about everybody sitting together and eating together, and it's part of who we are, our identity. And there is no reason why we should change that if we're diagnosed with diabetes. Traditional South Asian cuisine can be very healthy. Think of those mung dals and beans and lentils, and think of the brown coarse atta for your chapatis, etc. So there's nothing wrong with those foods. They're to be celebrated. But watch the way you're cooking. So when you're cooking, use a tablespoon to measure the amount of oil you're using and gradually cut down. Think about the salt that you're adding, because we tend to just salt straight from the bottle. Use a teaspoon, measure, and gradually cut down. And then I'm sure this happens in your family, but well-meaning grandparents, have more. They might put food on your plate, and we really need to learn to try and avoid those second helpings and use the VVPC plate to give you that right portion control. But the traditional diet versus Western diet is a really interesting question, because I've been involved in the NHS diabetes prevention program, and you might have seen some of the adverts. And I'd quite like to share, if we have time, a 2-minute recording of that video, so that you can see the sorts of advice for South Asian people with diabetes. Would that be all right?
Oh my, that'd be great. Of course. Let's watch the video.
Around 90% of people in the UK with diabetes have type 2 diabetes. And importantly, ethnicity is a major risk factor for type 2 diabetes. For people from a South Asian ethnic background, it's estimated that there's up to 6 times increased risk.
The Healthier You Diabetes Prevention Programme can support you in your lifestyle goals.
The topics that they cover in the session is obviously about the correct foods that you should be eating, the right diet.
Traditional South Asian cuisine can be really healthy, and there's no need to change to a Western-style diet in order to reduce your risks of type 2 diabetes. Whole grains are better for you than lower fibre types, so think about changing from white rice to brown rice. Choose coarse wholemeal atta, bajra or millet, besan or chickpea flour for your chapatis.
I found the program very useful. It's nice to have somebody who is a dietary expert and has the knowledge.
Enjoy beans and lentils such as kidney beans, black-eyed peas, chickpeas, masoor dal, tur dal, mung beans. These are all really healthy.
I've started exercising more. I swim every day, and now I'm running every day as well. I was a waist 42 when I started this program over a year ago. I'm now a waist 28. I'm a lot more enthusiastic about things, and I'm a lot more positive about things. I just want to do new hobbies and new interests. So I've suddenly sort of found my teenage years again. That's the most positive thing.
If you think you might be at risk of type 2 diabetes, go to the Diabetes UK Know Your Risk tool. You may be eligible for a place on your local Healthier You service. Right now, it's being done over telephone and video conference.
It's really easy to sign up online.
So it looks like we need these top tips for helping us to get to a healthy weight and managing type 2 diabetes. What do you advise in terms of how to eat?
How to eat. That's critical, isn't it? We've talked about what to eat, but actually the way that you eat can have quite an impact on how full you feel afterwards, and on your calorie intake, because it can influence your signals to your brain that tell you maybe it's time to stop. So mindful eating is a really good strategy. And, if you want, you asked me about comfort food earlier on, or if you're prone to snacking, then actually eating more mindfully and distracting yourself when you have those urges is a really good idea. So go out for a walk, or phone a friend, or go have a shower or something. But I've got some tips, if it's okay to share, on mindful eating.
Great. No, that'd be absolutely perfect, because I don't eat mindfully at all sometimes.
I think we're all guilty of that. I think at times we're all guilty of that. But well, here are some sort of top tips. Firstly, when you are going to eat at a table, ideally with other people, so there's a social element, and that's what we're craving at the moment anyway. So rather than eating while you're watching TV, sit down, have your food on a plate, use cutlery if appropriate, and really help your brain to know that this is a meal, this is an eating occasion, rather than snacking out of the biscuit tin when you're in the kitchen. The other tip is to take smaller mouthfuls and chew your food. So you're really mindful of the number of times you're putting food to your mouth. And if you are using cutlery, put the cutlery down between mouthfuls. And then when you do take a mouthful, think about the taste, the texture. How does it feel in your mouth? I mean, imagine now if you had a grape and you put that into your mouth. Think about crunching that grape. Think about the juices that are going to be going all around your mouth. Think about how that skin is much tougher and more difficult to chew. So you're having to really work hard at it. And if you're mindful like that, you will find that you just automatically eat more slowly. But what's interesting is that you get more flavor out of your food. So that grape, then you suddenly realize there's a sweet bit and there's a tart bit to it. And then there's the back of the throat sensation that happens. So if we can be more aware of the taste and textures of food and eat more slowly, chew our food well, and not be distracted, then these are all great strategies for helping us on how to eat more mindfully, which in the end helps us to realize when we're full. And that signal from your stomach goes to your brain and says, do you know what? I don't need that second helping. I think I'm happy. I've had enough. And that can really help you manage your weight and, really important, your blood glucose management and your risk of long-term complications of diabetes.
Oh my goodness. I'm kind of blown away by that, because I don't always think about satiety at all. I kind of eat quite quickly sometimes, and that's because I get hungry. And I think a lot of us do that at the moment, when we're sitting doing Zooms and stuff like that. But what about sharing with us what's the best overall diet that we can do if we want to be keeping an eye on our weight?
Okay, so I guess the first thing to say is that maybe there isn't a best overall diet, but it's what's right for you. And for specific advice, you really should seek the advice of a registered dietitian. You can ask your GP to refer you. If you have not been referred, you really ought to have advice from a registered dietitian, because what he or she can do is to assess what you're currently eating and work with you so that you make small manageable changes to your portion sizes and your cooking methods, so that you're still enjoying your traditional foods, or if you enjoy takeaways and convenience foods and pasta, you're still enjoying those foods, but you're doing it more healthily. So that's the first thing. Make sure you see a registered dietitian. And if your practice doesn't have a registered dietitian, then your practice nurse is a great person to go to for that sort of advice. And then I would say think about having regular meals and wise planned snacks. So eating regularly helps your blood glucose to be managed throughout the day. Make sure within that you're having regular physical activity, because that again helps those blood glucose levels stay nice and steady. And then when you're choosing your carbohydrate, remember those whole grain high fiber carbohydrates, because they will be lower in GI or glycemic index. When you're choosing your protein, try those plant-based foods. So have more lentils and beans and dals. And if you're having meat, then have lean cuts of meat, take the skin off chicken, etc. When you're cooking, think about your saturated fat, so cutting down on butter and on ghee, and measuring the oil that you're using with a tablespoon, measuring your salt with a teaspoon, gradually cutting down.
Okay. Can we go back to snacking? So that's my biggest downfall. Couch in the evening on a Saturday with a big bowl of. Snacking is good, bad. What are the downfalls for snacking?
Yeah, snacking is really associated with bad, isn't it? I'm of a different view. And again, remember, you should take the advice of your own dietitian. But my personal view is that wise, planned snacking can actually help to control your hunger. It can help you to resist temptations along the way when you're passing a bakery or something, if you've planned a good snack. So, for example, I'm a real fan of homemade popcorn, and it's very cheap. Buy some popping corn, put a tiny drop of oil into a pan, add a couple of tablespoons of popping corn, let it pop for about 3 minutes with the lid on. When the popping stops, add some lovely chili and lemon if you like. So homemade popcorn that's low in salt, low in sugar is a great snack. Or a handful of nuts. Yes, they're fattening, but a handful of nuts once a day is rich in protein, rich in fiber, and it can help you to feel full, and it's low GI. Microwave papadums are another great one, or steamed dokra. So there are, or roasted chana actually is a good one, which is available in supermarkets, roasted chickpeas. So there are snacks available, yogurt, diet yogurt, and an apple or something. So there are lots of snacks available that I think just makes them accessible. So have some hummus and olives in your fridge, have some whole grain oat cakes in your kitchen cupboards. Don't buy the unhealthy snacks, just keep them out of sight and have all these lovely fruits and vegetables around you.
Okay, so what is a good snack? 'Cause I know you touched on it before about the myth around fruit and sugar. So can you just go back to that for me, please?
Sure. So as we said, something like an apple, a small handful of grapes, a whole grain oat cake with maybe some low fat soft cheese, or some hummus on top, or some guacamole on top, or do some sliced avocado on a whole grain crisp bread, or have a slice of whole grain bread with baked beans, even if you're really hungry. It's still a healthy amount of food and still a healthy snack. Or have a whole grain cereal with some semi skimmed milk, or make a smoothie using semi skimmed milk or a soya drink or a plant alternative to milk, and add some berries and add some almonds and add some oats. Throw a handful of whole walnuts into a salad, and that way you're adding some omega-3 and it's filling. So there are lots of snacks that we can choose. It's for me about finding the ones that you like and not feeling guilty, and planning it into your day so that I'm hungry now, but I know in half an hour I'm going to have that hummus on my crisp bread, so I'm fine.
Okay, perfect. That is really sound advice, actually. Now, I understand that we've got to eat, balanced foods that give us carbs, protein, fruits, vegetable. Where does protein come from? Because I think there's a lot of confusion around proteins and where we get them from and where we don't. And yeah, so over to you.
So, yeah, you get protein from lean meat, from turkey, from chicken. Don't eat the skin because it's high in saturated fat. From cheese, go for low fat cheese or great extra mature cheddar so that you have a stronger flavor and you use less. You get protein from semi skimmed milk and from plant based alternatives. And if we're talking plant based, you get protein from all those lovely kidney beans, chickpeas, black eyed beans, red lentils, mung beans, all those delicious lentils and vegetables.
Perfect. So I've learned that you don't need to avoid carbs, which is probably a good thing for me, to lose weight, and that you need to include, easy ways of being active into your daily routine. So can you give us 5 steps to healthy weight?
Okay, so firstly, eat regular meals and planned snacks. Secondly, watch your portion size. So thinking about the VVPC plate that helps you to get balance. Thirdly, to choose whole grain carbohydrate foods like the brown pasta, whole grain cereals, wholemeal coarse atta. Fourth, to cut down your fat intake, particularly your saturated fat, so measuring the oil you use in cooking. And 5, to make sure that you're having your 5 a day fruit and vegetables so that you're moving towards more plant-based eating and you're getting more high fiber, low GI foods. And if I'm allowed a non-diet, extra to that, it would be regular physical activity.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you, Azmeen. It's just been great to see you again and just like get all those tips, because you know I can't wait to go over to mum and dad and just say, right, come on, shall we have now I know that we've put your website up, Twitter handle, all those sorts of things. And can you just run through very quickly again all of those different things? Don't forget the book. I'm so excited about this book. 'Cause, just one more time, just a quick little recap for us, so that if you're like me and you've just been like, you've got it all there, one place.
Sure, sure. Okay, so to be one of the 5 lucky winners of Vegan Savvy, which is out on the 10th of December, all you need to do is to follow me on Instagram or Twitter. I'm at Azmina Nutrition, and use the hashtag Vegan Savvy, and you will be automatically entered into a competition that's running from today, Saturday 14th November, till midnight tomorrow, Sunday 15th November. If you want more general tips on healthy eating, you can look at my blog or my website, which is azminanutrition.com. And obviously the Diabetes Research and Wellness Foundation, I'm on their editorial board, so look at their newsletters. And look at the films on the NHS website, the Better Health campaign, and good luck.
Wonderful. Are you on Facebook? I didn't hear you mention Facebook.
Actually, yes, you're right. I am on Facebook. Again, it's just Azmina Nutrition. So I do share tips on there. So absolutely, come and join me.
Perfect. So there's a few ways that we can all get information about how we can eat better, exercise more, and just generally stay healthier and manage our blood sugar. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I've learned loads. Really, really have. So thank you once again.
Thank you. It's been lovely to reconnect with you.